Thank you all for being in attendance today and being part of the housing conference. We're really excited to be doing this. For anyone that hasn't met me yet, I'm Field Secretary of Phi Gamma Delta. My name is Logan, and um, I'd like to introduce Steve Ratterman. Today, he is going to be leading a discussion on the benefits of using third-party management company and how it can positively impact your housing operation. Feel free to take it away, Steve.
Thanks, Logan. I appreciate that very much. And I'd like to welcome everybody and appreciate you giving up several hours of your Saturday for the benefit of Phi Gamma Delta. Just to be clear, I am not a Fiji. A great fan of Fiji since I was in college. If I hadn't become a Sigma Nu, I probably would have been a Fiji. Some of my best friends are Fijis from Indiana University. I throw this up for really one reason in particular is other than you can kind of say a little bit about who I am, but I want you to understand I come from your shoes, right? I've been on a chapter advisory board, several chapter advisory boards, and past House Corps board member as well. So I've got those T-shirts. I've kind of been out there with you guys in the battlefield trying to figure this stuff out. I do want to mention a couple of resources that our company does provide. If you want to make note of them, see it on our website, CSL Management. You can go to that and find all kinds of information, especially if you click under resources and go to the hub tab. Our idea is to provide a lot of information from across our industry. So you'll not only find stuff from CSL, but from third-party food vendor management, from the various insurance brokers and others who are vendors within our industry that provide services for us. So I encourage you at your convenience, if you want to learn more, CSL Management. Look for the resources tab at the top right, and then click on the hub. Let's talk a little bit about where house corporations are today, at least as far as the ones we're talking to. And I think this is a pretty good broad statement as we go down through here of where we are as an industry. And we do, I think most of us that are out here working in this environment do call it an industry, because it is, as Steve Bacher just noted a few minutes ago on his presentation, if you were on it, he certainly made mention of the fact that, these are businesses. Our chapter homes are businesses, and we need to treat them that way, no matter what we're doing. So I want to start first, before I go through this slide, I want to start with asking you a question. We're going to come back to this question at the end. And I want you to think about this as we go through it. What is your brand? What is your brand? What does your brand look like in the grand scheme of things, right? If a parent walks into your chapter house, what are they seeing? A potential new member walks into your fraternity house. What are they seeing? That is our brand as fraternities. And so the question is, what does our brand look like? Is it good? Is it bad? Does it portray the image that we want it to? Now, I can tell you that I walk in Sigma Nu houses that make me very proud. And I walk in Sigma Nu houses and I want to go find somebody and strangle them. So the question is, what does your brand look like? I found it interesting in the opening comments that the Archon president, that Nick said, Fiji is starting a housing initiative, and we're going to push forward on this to help our house corporations improve what they're doing in the marketplace now. And we need to be aware that there are other organizations out there that are making housing a competitive issue. I had heard at one point that Sigma Phi Epsilon, in fact, had stated that they were going to make housing a competitive advantage. So we all want to recruit the best and the brightest, right? That's our goals. If it's not, we're probably in trouble. But if we're going to recruit the best and the brightest, uh, housing is a great way to start that. And so SIGEP has laid that mark down. Dave Shinnick in his opening remarks noted very well that, hey, he took a house that was in deep trouble and in 2 years turned it around. And that can be done. 2 to 3 years, you can take a house that's in deep trouble and really make a difference. So, in Steve's conversation, and I wanted to bring this up because there's some crossover between what he talked about and what we're going to talk about. So, but let's talk a little bit about where are we today? One of the big things we see are fewer volunteers. There's limited time for us as volunteers to do what we want to do. I still volunteer for Sigma Nu, but I also volunteer for a number of other organizations. So we have competing priorities in what we're doing out in the marketplace. And so, what is it that's going to attract someone to come volunteer their time for Fiji? If you're going to be Dave Shinnick and working 30 to 40 hours a week, you better be a volunteer. If you've got it clicking pretty well, you won't have to do that. But still, it takes time, it takes energy. Somebody's got to answer the phone when there's a problem. Limited expertise. What we're seeing out in the market now currently is the complex mechanical systems that frankly take engineers to run, and are a challenge just to keep up and running and properly maintain. And you need people that understand how do we take care of this equipment so we get the longest life expectancy we can out of it, right? Complex regulatory environment. I don't ever remember seeing in 4 years I lived in my fraternity, my chapter house. I don't ever remember seeing anyone from a local government or the university come inspect our house ever. Now, our average property has 18 inspections per year, 18 inspections per year on average. There's a higher level of expectation by our members. If we've got the good high quality membership, they're going to want certain amenities. Just was listening to the gentleman from Arizona a few minutes ago talk about what they've done there, and incredible. And I'm certain that they're meeting that high level of expectation, and not only the members but the parents. What's that higher level of expectation? And then you've got the challenging issues that just come along with operating a 24/7 operation with individuals that, as the psychologists like to say, their brains haven't fully developed yet. So they're doing things that challenge us on a daily basis. So you take something like COVID and you throw it in the middle of all this, and it's like, whoa. So we've got challenging issues we have to deal with. And then customer demands. I've touched on this a little bit about our parents and our alumni. And this is one area that Steve touched on, with a commitment to the member experience, right? They are our customer. So what is it we need to be doing for them? Obviously providing a safe environment for them, where all the inspections are up to date, where all the fire emergency systems work. So those kinds of things are very important. Food is important. You want to fill a house, have a great chef, right? And we're big fans of the kitchen management groups, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit later. And then obviously, as he mentioned, amenities. And then finally, fiduciary responsibilities. This is the biggest challenge that we find in any area. We'll talk more about this in just a minute when we talk about some key issues and key challenges. But fiscal responsibility is huge. And we have to find a way to be better at that, because in our experience, we find that, we're not charging enough rent. There's, Steve talked about reserve studies. There are no reserve studies. We don't even know. We can't even tell you when the boiler was replaced, or the HVAC system was replaced, or the roof was replaced, because we don't have the records. We don't know what's going on. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well as we go through this. So here are key challenges I want you to think about as we walk through this, and we consider some of the ways that a third party management group might be able to help you to move your needles forward in these various areas. So finances, budgets, and cash. So often we go into to talk to a new potential new client. They don't have a budget. They have no cash reserves, no budget. They're operating out of a checkbook, to be honest. And so this creates a lot of challenges. We've even found situations where house corporations have not even in the last 20 years have not filed for their state corporation records. And so they're not technically a corporation anymore. And the members of that board no longer have any sort of corporate protection behind them because that has expired. So, creating budgets and following those budgets, making sure our rent is up to snuff. Our rent should cover at least enough over our expenses to provide 10% of free cash year over year. So those are things that we need to be focused on, thinking about, and aware of as we go forward with this. And then next, we need to have reserves, cash reserves. Again, going back to the comment about reserve studies. This is an area where we have recently started helping several of our clients, and banks are asking for it. National house corporations are starting to ask for it. So the national offices such as Fiji are starting to recommend it and suggest it. So it's a huge area. So what do our finances look like? Are we working out of a checkbook, or do we have financial reports? Or do we have financial reporting? Is our rent competitive? And when I mean competitive, I mean, is it competitive with the market? Too often we go in and we'll see, well, we can't afford to do anything. Well, you're charging half of what the rest of the market is. A general rule of thumb for us is if you're at about 90 or 95% of what the university dorm food and dorm and food expenses are, then you're going to be, you should be in pretty good shape. Maintaining records. Is anyone keeping up? I'm sorry?
Steve, just real quick, what is there a baseline at all on what you suggest for reserves?
Yeah, we suggest 10% a year. So if your net, if your gross income is 100,000, we would suggest 10,000 at a minimum as a reserve. That's a general rule of thumb that's been followed, Chip, for many years within the not-for-profit market. I would suggest as fraternities, we probably need to do a little bit more than that if we can. But you may have to work up to that point as you work to get your rent up if your rent's not competitive now. Does that make sense?
Yep, sure does. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Maintaining records, again, who is keeping up with the inspections? Who has all the inspections documentation? Because if you don't have that documentation when the university comes in or the local building codes people come in, if you don't have all that together and in one place and somebody doesn't have to go chase it down, you could get potentially shut down by local authorities. So we need to make sure that we have all of our maintenance records in a good place. What do our historical records look like? As I mentioned previously, we're talking about, where are your warranties? When was the last time the roof was replaced? When was the last time the boiler was replaced? When was the last time the plumbing and electrical were updated? This is all critical information that someone needs to hold somewhere. Preventative maintenance. The average property we have a list of preventative maintenance items that we keep up with that's over 3 pages deep. So there's a ton of different things that need to be considered. We need to be thinking about, and again, the reserve studies help this somewhat. How often should you replace your mattresses as an example? I walked into properties within the last 10 years that had mattresses that had dates on them from 1980, from the mid 1980s. I think that mattress probably should have been replaced a little earlier than that. So, what does your preventive maintenance look like? And are you keeping up with it? And are you following it? Routine maintenance. Steve mentioned this a little bit in his presentation. Do you have a maintenance plan? What do your, are you making sure that the preventive maintenance is being taken care of? But then also, what do your semester break repairs look like? What do you need to be doing at semester break? What do you need to be doing over the summer to turn the house to get it ready for the next fall? These are all critical issues that we as house corporations have to be paying attention to. And then finally, well, not finally, but next, emergency and urgent care or urgent repairs. 24/7 facilities equal 24/7 needs. Who's taking the 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. call to make sure that things are taken care of at the house? Who are things being reported to so that you're not the one being wakened up in the middle of the night or woken up in the middle of the night? What about capital expense planning? Do you do it? How long is your capital expenditure plan go out for? We suggest that you combine a 5-year CapEx plan because things change so frequently and so radically over a 5-year period. We believe that 5 years is probably a pretty good timeline to have it, but it's got to be updated every year. So you've got basically a rolling 5-year capital expenditure plan. And you combine that with your reserve study, and you've got a pretty good base of understanding of what your reserves need to look like. What are your upcoming expenses? Because you're thinking this through, and your plan will help you with that. One thing that if it hasn't hit your campus, it is coming, and that is competitiveness in housing. And it's coming. It's been there really for the most part with sororities for a long time, but it is coming down to the fraternity level at this point because the demands of our students are just, they want better, they want to do better. We do have to be sure that we're looking at that. So what is your plan? Who do you need to have involved in that plan? Do you need an architect? Do you need an engineer? Do you need someone to help you plan and work through that process? Who do you need involved? And then finally, what are your costs going to be? And then there's ways to control those costs. If you plan ahead and you think it through to make sure you're not going backwards to go forwards. So frequently what we'll see many times is that we'll come into a project late and we're having to back up to fix something and then move forward. Well, that's not effective. It doesn't control our costs, and it's expensive. And then again, we would encourage obviously multiple bids at any particular point. So the question is, who's going to go track those down? Who's going to vet the contractor or the vendor to make sure that they are good at what they're doing and have a good reputation. And then inspections, I touched about this a little bit a few seconds ago, but again, we have to maintain our inspections, whether it's the fire extinguishers, the extinguisher on the hood, getting the hood clean, getting the grease pit out back, outside the kitchen cleaned out. Just take a pick. There are a number of things that have to be inspections that have to be done, records that have to be kept, and managing the response to any deficiencies that are found. So, the fire marshal comes through to do his inspection. Who's managing the process and making sure that all those things that the fire marshal wants done gets done? Those are all things that we've got to be sure that we're taking care of and we're paying attention to. So what are the advantages of third-party management? And I've alluded to some of them, but theoretically, it allows the house corporation to operate as a board, right? The house, too often we see house corporations that are large or unwieldy, and they're trying to divide and conquer. Some do a better job than others do. In Dave's case, he had 13 people on his house corporation board. We would suggest that a house corporation board should have between 5 to 7 members, that because we can show very specific jobs and tasks that they can take care of. But then we would suggest that anybody over that wants to be involved, we all need people involved with the young men in our chapters. That's how they grow. That's how they become better. So reassign them to help the young men in the chapter. Bringing in a third party vendor like ourselves, or one of the other groups out there that focus on fraternity and sorority housing, is that now the house corporation has a staff. They're setting policy and procedure for the management company, and the management company takes care of the day-to-day operations of the house. It also helps provide consistency of operation. One of the big things that we see off and on over time is that, you've got a really strong house corp president, and then a not so strong, and the quality of the house and the housing goes up and down. So, theoretically, a good vendor will help you to stabilize and keep your house operations at a good level. They should provide a central repository for all legal, warranty, and maintenance documents. So no more, as I say here, no more banker's boxes, or worse, which the worst is nobody knows. Nobody knows where any of the documentation is. Nobody knows where our articles of incorporation are. Nobody knows where the board minutes are. A good third party group should be able to help you with a way to organize those documents and hold a repository, so that as the board changes over time, which it will and it should, that they know to just pick up the phone and call CSL. They've got those documents. They can tell us all that information. We've got a very robust database that we work out of. So theoretically, any of us should be able to find those documents. When I say any of us, I mean the vendors out there. But I would make sure that they can do that for you as well, that they're going to track all that. And also provide a central repository for maintenance and inspection records. Who's got a copy of all your invoices? Who's got a copy of all your inspection notices? Who can pull that up for you in a few minutes if, for whatever reason, it's not on site when the building codes inspector comes by and wants to make sure that all your life safety equipment has been properly inspected and maintained over the past year. And then some of the benefits that we think, I'm biased, obviously, but some of the benefits we find are you've got happy customers. We tend to discount. Well, they're just, they're our members. They really don't care. The parents don't care. That's not true. If we care, they will care, right? At the end of the day, if we're taking part of, if we're taking care of the house in a proper manner, theoretically the guys should too. So I would say it's not 100%. Sometimes it takes a while to turn the ship in the right direction. But if we're taking good care of the property, it shouldn't be an issue. Increased occupancy is another benefit. We've seen that happen time and again, where occupancy is down. We come in, we catch up deferred maintenance, catch up the inspections, get a plan in place, start providing some improvements as time goes on. The occupancy goes up because the house is nicer. People want to be there. People want to stay there. So you get increased occupancy. I will say also, and I mentioned this a minute ago, that kitchen management groups can help with this as well. I can give you the best house in the world. We don't, we don't go out and do food management. I've run restaurants before in a previous career. I don't want to do it again, but I could do it. And we could do it, but we're not as good as some of the groups out there. So we don't get into that. But I would encourage you, if you don't use a kitchen management group, to consider it, because more times, more often than not, they can potentially save you money. Theoretically, we should be able to reduce your expenses over time. I always used to say, well, I can show you where we can pay for ourselves. That's probably not good advertising. But normally we can show where we can reduce your long-term operating cost over time, just because with more efficiency and getting the preventive maintenance in a good place. And then finally, you have someone to take 24/7 maintenance and emergency calls. We have someone on call 24/7, 365 days a year. It's always someone that it's a senior member of staff that can go and help resolve an issue at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, so that you're not being bothered with that. And then we will normally inform you the next day of what's going on and what has happened. So I want to offer 2 quick case studies that we've been personally involved with that kind of shows the benefits of going this route and looking into a third-party management company. The first is was a chapter at a small private university. Chapter house was 3 days from being shut down by the fire marshal when we were called for a long list of violations. Occupancy was roughly at 50%. And the chapter membership was only 16. So the house actually slept 16. They had 16, had a 1-person board that was located across the state. So 8 guys in the house, 16 membership, not in a good place, weren't charging enough rent. The House Corps president couldn't figure out why he couldn't pay for anything. Well, he wasn't collecting his rents. Well, not only was not charging enough, he wasn't collecting them. It was just kind of a mess. So we negotiated, we came in, negotiated with the fire marshal, got an extension to get the work done, kept her updated. Within 90 days, we had all of her immediate issues resolved. She gave us time to kind of get some funds together and get that taken care of. We created within that time frame. We also created a capital expenditure plan, and execution was begun on that even while the guys were in the house. A year later, our occupancy was at 100, so all 16 beds were filled. Chapter was up to 32 members. Within the second year of occupancy, we were still, second year of our plan, we were still at 100% occupancy, but the chapter membership at that point had almost tripled, or had tripled. And there were no fire or building code violations out there, whether they were critical or minor. The property was in good shape.
Steve, can I ask 2 quick questions?
Yes, Vince, please.
What is the average cost of a reserve study? And like in our case with a chapter of 115 men, what is the average? What do you base your management fee on? Is it size of chapter? How is it based?
Well, a reserve study, Vince, and our management fees both fluctuate based on the size of the facility and how long we believe it's going to take us to, I need to quit touching my mouse here, and how long we believe it's going to take us to get that done. And then the same is somewhat true with the house. The house is a matter of several functions. One is size, one is age, another's condition. And then finally, at the end of the day, we're going to be more, we're also going to be honest, we do look, at the fraternity, the chapter. With fraternities, we look at the quality of the chapter as part of our process, just because we know that from experience that a good chapter, we're probably not going to burn as many hours of our staff time as we will with a chapter that's not functioning at a high level. Now, I say all that, but we still have a range. I mean, it could be the worst property in the world and a huge chapter, and they're not doing anything right, and so on and so forth. We recognize we work for not-for-profits, so we do have an upper limit with that. So, that's a vague answer, but it just depends on the whole the whole scheme of things. We've got everything, and it depends on what you want us to do as well. We can help you with the accounting, we can help you with the day-to-day management, or we can just do your accounting or just do your day-to-day management, or help you with your house director, or just come in and run a project for you. Whatever you need us to do, we can do that. So it just depends, frankly.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wish I could give you a more direct answer, but unfortunately. So let me hit the second case study, and we'll do some questions after this. This was at a large state school. Okay. National Housing Corporation called us on behalf of the local house corporation. It was a property they were taking over because of the condition and what was going on at the property. There were serious building code violations. When we were called in, they had an edict, if you will, from the local building codes folks that they had 3 weeks to resolve the issues at hand, because they've been trying to get these resolved for some time, and nobody did anything for them. And so when we came in, first thing we did again was negotiate with the codes people, got an extension, and started, frankly, working. This was a property. Interestingly, we had to do $30,000 of remedial work before the city would give us a building permit to do the projects that they wanted us to do, which was $60,000. So we spent $90,000 to, this is, again, a lot of deferred maintenance, a lot of issues going on here. So the chapter occupancy was roughly, the occupancy of the house rather was actually about 60%, but half of that were non-members. So there were boarders in the chapter house, which we had never run into before. Chapter membership was about 28. Again, we negotiated some time to get the codes issues taken care of, because frankly, they were 3 and 4 month issues, not 21-day issues. CapEx plan was created, started, and shared with the building codes folks. We executed over 18 months. After 18 months, the occupancy was 100%. That was all members, and the chapter membership was up to 48. The house continues to stay full, and chapter membership, I think, now is somewhere in the 60 or 70 range on this house, this chapter. So we can help. One other quick one I recall, we worked on another large state school. We went in, again, taken over from a local house corporation. And there was a fire marshal had just issued 6 pages of critical violations that he wanted done within 90 days. We got them all done. He came back to reinspect, and then he handed me another list of violations that was 21 pages long. And I said, where did these come from? And he goes, well, these have all been stacked up for the years. He said, but nobody would take care of them. So I was just trying to focus on the ones that I thought I could get somebody to do something with. But he goes, I want all this stuff done. I said, well, I'm not going to do it in 90 days. He said, if you do it in a year, we'll be happy. And we had it done in about 6 months. So it's just a matter of paying attention to what's going on. It's a matter of taking care of the basic blocking and tackling, which is so hard for volunteers on so many different levels that, it really isn't fair to ask a volunteer to do all the things that are necessary today to run these fraternity and sorority houses. So with that, Logan, I think we have a few minutes left for questions. So if anyone has any other questions.
I do.
Sure, Ken.
On the last two that you talked about that were state schools, how large were the cities in which they were located?
Probably, well, one was part of a metropolitan area of several million. The other, probably $250,000. So they were in relatively large cities. They weren't in small communities.
So they were, wow. So I guess because in chapters where they have a large number of parties, and they, I'm an alum of the University of Texas at Austin, and
Yes, sir.
And because of the size of the University of Texas and the number of fraternity houses and the number of parties and the attendance at the parties, there's not only a very, in order to have a permit to have a party, you have to have an inspection before every party in which you have anyone outside of the chapter. So
Right.
It was interesting to me when you were talking about how they don't really have an interaction with the fire departments. That's kind of interesting.
Well, they have interactions with the fire departments. The problem, but from a party standpoint, it didn't make any difference. Now, one of those examples, the state school, they now have to get a permit for every event from the fire marshal. So it's a different situation than what it was previously. And in fact, at that particular property, the fire inspections were fairly up to date. The problem there was building code issues. So two completely different departments. But yes, almost every fraternity or sorority house that I'm aware of today, it does get a fire marshal inspection. Some get university inspections as well. And then some may or may not get a city inspection as part of that process. So yeah, it varies by location, right? So and then it varies by year as well, because everybody wants something different. So
well, but in most jurisdictions, because I'm in the development business and I used to be a practicing architect, and I'm in the urban multifamily development business, so I'm very familiar with development and permitting and all that. Is that to a great extent the fire department is the jurisdiction's influence on existing property. So literally they do in a lot of ways they're the ones that see the houses and any properties more often. So in a lot of jurisdictions, if they don't call building inspection issues, you can't wait till somebody comes in for a building permit. In other words, there's in the jurisdictions I'm familiar with, the fire department is the overriding department that's interested in that. But anyway, that's kind of irrelevant. But
yeah, well, and it is interesting too, because in one of the second example that I mentioned, the fire department is like I said, it was up to date, up to snuff, and nobody had said anything. And again, it's every department's different, every fire marshal's different,
right.
Every inspector's different. So nobody had said anything. And the way the building codes got involved was the tenant called because they were so frustrated.
Well, I did want to kind of echo what you were saying about the complexity. At the University of Texas, we just completed 7 years ago a $5 million, it may have ended up costing $6 million addition to our 114-year-old fraternity house. It really wasn't an addition. It was a separate building, thankfully. And the sophistication of the systems in that building, I'm a developer and I'm not, you have to know who to call. the management of a building built in 2013 versus the management of a fraternity house built in 1906, even if it's been renovated 20 times, is totally different. And
Right.
the sprinkler systems, the fire alarm systems, everything is the intrusion alarm systems. Everything is totally different, and it's a headache for house corporation members and for management.
Yeah, it becomes, we have seen some crazy large changes in this stuff, so it can be very very difficult. So I mean, I've walked into systems that would put most large commercial operations to shame, some of the complexities that we've seen in some of these systems. So and as we work more towards high efficiency lead type properties, it's only going to get more so, because to get to the efficiencies everybody's looking for, that's what it takes. So
Right. Which is why
Steve?
we're considering a third party,
right.
going to
Right.
third party management. Anyway,
Right.
I'll shut up.
Yeah, no. Logan, I think, or was that somebody else?
No, that was me.
Oh, Chip.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so I want to go back on kind of what Kent just talked about and what Vince was kind of going towards. I mean, is there a baseline? Is there a percentage? Let's say the chapter house is humming along, everything's great. What would be the percentage of the fees that the third party would want, and what would they be from? From the rent, or would it be from dues, or what?
So I can't, I can't talk or speak to how anybody else charges. I know that from our perspective, we try to keep, and again, it depends on what we're doing for the client, correct?
Sure.
But if we're just coming in to do straight operations, we try to keep it under 3% of revenue, if at all possible. And then as we add services to that, it could grow. But certainly that's a rule of thumb for us. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
And that revenue
just to
is
kind of tell you, in the apartment business, I mean, it probably ranges nationwide, but we've developed projects in Texas, Georgia, New Mexico. You're typically in the A apartment business, which is very similar to the fraternity business in terms of a lot of these markets,
right?
Where the rents have to be, some of the rents at fraternity houses are top of the market, but they have to be a certain percentage of market rents. A lot of third party management companies charge between 2.5% and 3%.
Yeah. It really depends on the kind of the nature of the beast. So
Steve, one last comment. Vince San Angelo at Arizona. So what I take from your explanation of all this is that your company then tailors to whatever the needs are of the house corporation, and that reflects in the cost of the service.
Yes, sir. We do our best. Now, obviously we're trying, we've got certain things that, like any business, you got to have a model, you have to have a plan, right? So, but we try to meet our clients where they are. We have 4 buckets, as we call them. One is day-to-day operations. One is assessments, where we come out and all we're doing is coming out and doing a complete, basement to roof assessment of your house. When we're done, we tell you what needs to be done immediately. We give you a 5-year CapEx plan. We also do projects, just either for our clients or one-off projects for people. We've done probably roughly 175 million in the last 10 years of project work. And and again, all we work on are fraternity and sororities. We don't venture outside of that. And then the last thing we do is education. We provide a lot of educational resources. When you go to our website, you'll see those, but we also have a YouTube channel that's got all kinds of webinars that we've done in the last year related to COVID, operating your house, any number of different subjects. So, and we also provide, it's a separate group, but going forward, we will have a National House Corporation, a National House Director training that we'll be doing and providing. So that will be this summer. Hopefully that helps. But yes, we try to tailor as closely as we can to the needs of the local house corporation or the national board. We work with a lot of national house corporations as well. I think we're 2 minutes over, so I need to pop into my next session. So if here's my contact information. If anybody has any further questions or would like to reach out, happy to help any way we can.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, guys.